There is a silent force that separates those who transform their lives from those who stay stuck year after year. It is not talent. It is not intelligence. It is not luck. It is consistency. The ability to show up every day, especially when you don't feel like it, is the highest form of self-mastery. Anyone can act when motivation is high, but only a few can remain disciplined when energy is low and resistance is loud. Consistency is not about doing something big once, it is about doing something small, correctly, every single day. Most people wait for progress to feel exciting before they commit, but consistency is built the opposite way. It begins when you learn to respect small actions that seem ordinary, repetitive, and unimpressive. Daily effort may not deliver immediate results, but it creates a foundation that nothing else can replace. When you shift your focus from outcomes to actions, something powerful happens. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop asking whether it is worth it. You simply show up and do the work that needs to be done. Falling in love with daily action means understanding that transformation is not dramatic, it is quiet. It happens in moments no one applauds. A single workout does not change a body. A single focused session does not build mastery, but repeated daily actions reshape identity. Every time you act, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who follows through. Over time, this belief becomes stronger than motivation or emotion. You no longer rely on how you feel, you rely on who you are becoming. Daily action builds rhythm, and rhythm creates stability. When your actions are predictable, your progress becomes inevitable. You begin to trust yourself because you have proof that you will show up regardless of mood. That trust fuels confidence, not the loud kind, but a deep internal confidence rooted in experience. You stop chasing intensity and start valuing consistency. You realize that the most powerful form of progress is the one that feels almost boring because it is sustainable. There will be days when effort feels pointless and repetitive. This is where most people quit. They mistake lack of excitement for lack of growth, but growth is often invisible before it becomes obvious. Daily action teaches patience. It trains you to operate without constant feedback. You learn to work without praise, to improve without recognition, and to continue without reassurance. This is where real discipline is formed. When you fall in love with daily action, you stop overestimating what you can do in one day and stop underestimating what you can do in a year. Small steps compound. Tiny improvements stack. Momentum builds quietly until one day the results appear undeniable. By then, consistency is no longer something you force. It is something you embody. Daily action also reduces mental friction. Decision-making drains energy. When you commit to showing up daily, the decision is already made. You remove the question of whether to act and replace it with the certainty that action is non-negotiable. This frees mental space and allows focus to deepen. The work becomes cleaner, sharper, and more intentional. Over time, daily action reshapes your relationship with effort. You stop seeing effort as punishment and start seeing it as alignment. Each action becomes a form of self-respect. You honor your goals by giving them time, attention, and consistency. Progress no longer depends on bursts of motivation. It flows from commitment. The more you act, the more natural action becomes. The more natural it becomes, the less resistance you feel. Consistency stops being a struggle and starts becoming your default state. Most people believe consistency fails because of a lack of motivation, but the real reason is poor design. When your environment is filled with distractions, temptations, and unnecessary friction, even strong intentions collapse. Consistency becomes effortless when the right actions are made easier than the wrong ones. This is not about forcing discipline through willpower, it is about removing excuses before they appear. When your surroundings support your goals, progress becomes natural instead of exhausting. Every action you take is influenced by what is immediately available to you. If distractions are within reach, they will be used. If tools for growth are prepared, they will be chosen. Designing your environment means deciding in advance who you want to become and arranging your space to support that identity. Clothes laid out the night before reduce hesitation. A clean workspace invites focus. A scheduled routine removes emotional negotiation. When excuses are eliminated at the source, consistency has space to grow. Routine is a powerful form of design. When actions are tied to specific times, locations, or triggers, they stop relying on mood. You no longer ask yourself whether you should act, the structure answers for you. This reduces mental fatigue and preserves energy for execution. The more decisions you remove, the easier it becomes to stay consistent. Discipline strengthens when it does not have to fight unnecessary battles. Designing for consistency also means being honest about weakness. It is not a failure to acknowledge that distractions pull your attention or comfort tempts you to delay. It is wisdom. Strength is not about resisting temptation endlessly, it is about limiting exposure to it. When you remove triggers that lead to procrastination, you protect your focus. When you simplify your commitments, you increase your follow-through. Excuses thrive in complexity. The more complicated a task feels, the easier it is to delay. Simplifying systems turns resistance into action. Break goals into clear steps. Make starting easy. Reduce preparation time. The easier it is to begin, the more likely consistency becomes. Progress favors clarity over ambition. Design also includes social influence. The people around you shape your standards. When you surround yourself with discipline, focus, and accountability, consistency feels normal. When excuses are accepted in your environment, they become contagious. Choosing your environment carefully is choosing your future deliberately. When excuses are removed by design, discipline no longer feels heavy. You stop relying on motivation because action becomes the default. Your energy shifts from battling resistance to creating progress. Over time, consistency strengthens not because you became more forceful, but because you became more intentional. Life begins to align with your goals, not through struggle, but through structure, clarity, and deliberate design that quietly supports your daily actions. Consistency is not tested when things are easy, it is revealed when things are uncomfortable. Anyone can show up when energy is high and progress feels rewarding, but real growth begins the moment resistance appears. Resistance shows up as fatigue, boredom, self-doubt, and the urge to delay. Most people interpret this feeling as a signal to stop, but it is actually a signal that discipline is being formed. Showing up when it is hard rewires your relationship with effort and transforms discomfort into strength. When you act despite resistance, you break the habit of emotional dependence. You stop letting mood dictate behavior. This is a critical shift because emotions are temporary, but habits are lasting. Every time you choose action over comfort, you teach your mind that discomfort is not dangerous. Over time, resistance loses its power to control you. What once felt heavy becomes manageable. What once felt impossible becomes routine. Showing up when it is hard also builds trust with yourself. Many people struggle with consistency, not because they lack ability, but because they no longer trust their own commitments. Each broken promise weakens self-belief. Each fulfilled promise strengthens it. When you act on difficult days, you send a clear message to yourself that your word matters. This internal trust becomes a powerful source of confidence that does not rely on external validation or immediate results. Hard days are often quiet. There is no excitement, no praise, no visible progress. This is where most people quit because they crave feedback. But growth does not always announce itself. Progress often happens beneath the surface long before it becomes visible. Showing up anyway trains patience and resilience. You learn to operate without applause, to move forward without reassurance, and to stay committed without certainty. Discomfort also sharpens focus. When conditions are challenging, you are forced to prioritize what truly matters. You eliminate distractions, excuses, and unnecessary actions. Effort becomes intentional. This clarity strengthens discipline and deepens purpose. You stop wasting energy on perfection and focus on presence. You do what needs to be done, not what feels good. Over time, showing up when it is hard changes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. This identity shift is subtle but powerful. Actions stop feeling forced because they align with who you believe you are. Discipline becomes self-expression rather than self-control. Hard days will always exist. There will always be moments when quitting feels easier than continuing. But every time you show up despite discomfort, you build momentum that carries you forward. Strength accumulates quietly. Confidence deepens naturally. Resistance becomes familiar rather than frightening. You stop fearing difficulty and start trusting your ability to move through it, one action at a time,